Maggie. I'm a licensed clinical psychotherapist with degrees in psychology, theology, and marriage and family therapy, a national certification in dialectical behavioral therapy, and a national certification in integrative mental health. In this video, I'm not looking to diagnose anyone. I'm only willing to offer insight into situations like these. All right, everybody. I was having mic issues. It looks like it's taken care of, but if at any point in time it glitches out, let me know. All right, so we're going to talk about the fish people. In every corner of the earth, there are stories of beings that came from the water, half human or half fish, or rising from the water, shimmering with knowledge, bringing civilization to mankind. These stories are everywhere, okay? From the depths of the Dogon oral traditions in Mali to the primordial gods of Kemet and Mesopotamia, from ancient Vedic avatars in India to hidden symbols enshrined in the Vatican itself. A submerged truth is there. Could the fish people have been real? So we're going to talk about it, but first let's say hello to some people. It looks like Marcus is first from the Keep It 100 channel. Auntie is here, my favorite auntie from backstage. Leon is here. Hope you're doing well. Spain Man is here. He says hi to the tribe. Anybody watching from the clouds, please feel free to say hello. This is the best live tribe on YouTube. You will be welcomed in as long as you're appropriate. All right, so let's get started. Could the fish people have been real? And if so, why has their memory been buried beneath empires, priesthoods, and false gods? Now, I had somebody ask me, fish people, come on. I'm like, okay, well, we can all imagine angels flying with wings. How is that any weirder than fish people? We've all heard of mermaids, right? So let's talk about the Nomo mythos. But before we do, let me get in here, add some stuff to the stage. Okay, so this is part of the Dogon mythos right here. Interesting, huh? They're wearing fish suits, at least. Okay, so these are the Dogon. These are the things they draw in sand to teach one another these things. So in the Nomo mythos, they say that the Nomo arrived in a spinning arc that roared like thunder, landing in a whirl of dust, which kind of sounds like a UFO a little bit. It's like there's echoes of extraterrestrial here. What they're saying when we say extraterrestrial is the same thing that I say when I say extraterrestrial. It just means outside the earth or the earth's atmosphere. So angels are extraterrestrial, God is extraterrestrial. They're all extraterrestrial, right? It's just a being or a life form that comes from outside earth. So we don't have to get weird about it. Okay. Now, these Nomo who landed in the spinning arc, they taught language, farming, law, and cosmology. And they're said to have disintegrated into the water upon their death, symbolizing rebirth, transformation, all that kind of thing. Adrian is here. He says, what's up, everyone? And Adric made it. Peace to you as well. So if we listen to what this elder says, this is Elder, I'm going to butcher the name and I'm so sorry. Elder Ogotemeli. Hope that's good. Ogotemeli. All right. He says the Nomo are masters of the water. They are the keepers of time and the sacred vibration of the world. Interesting. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about Enki from Mesopotamia. Okay. Enki, the Abzu, and the Apkallu are the ones we're going to be talking about. So Enki, there was Enki and Enlil. Okay. Enlil was like, they're like twins. They are the oldest. They get to rule stuff. But Enki made humanity. Enlil made tyranny and dictatorship. So Enki, who was the god of wisdom and of the deep waters, he was the god of the deep waters, the Abzu. He is the Sumerian predecessor to Neptune and Poseidon. They're both kind of based on him. He sent the Apkallu, half human, half fish sages, who emerged from the waters to teach humanity science, astrology, language, and temple architecture. Kind of sounds like the Nomo a little bit. So, who were the Apkallu? Okay. In Akkadian, Apkallu means sage or wise one. That's all that really means. They were created by the gods, specifically Enki, who we also call Ea. He is the god of wisdom, water, and creation. The purpose was to bring divine wisdom, art, science, culture, all of that to humanity. Wisdom, okay? Particularly, they came particularly after the creation of humans, right? Like they wanted to get everybody up to speed. Typically, there are 7 Apkallu, known as the 7 Apkallu, right? And each is associated with a specific king or a city from the antediluvian era. So, antediluvian means that great flood that happened, that flooded the earth. And that's not just biblical. Archaeologists talk about the diluvian era, and that's when things were flooded. Okay. So, the Apkallu are often depicted as hybrid beings. Okay. They are a human animal hybrid, so human body with fish or bird features. In their full human form, they are wearing robes and holding ritual items, and they served as priests, advisors, and protectors of civilization. They are associated with the apotropaic magic, which is protection from evil, especially in Assyrian palace reliefs. And the reason why I've got this DNA up here is that in the Mesopotamian mythos of Enki and Enlil, there was what people say some messing with some DNA. And the interesting thing about DNA is when you turn it upright, as you see in that picture, the circles, okay, is when you turn it upright. What you see as you're looking down into the DNA also looks like when we do cymatic vibrations, which is what is on the right. So a cymatic vibration is where it's either a bowl of water or it's a metal plate with sand on the top of it, and a certain frequency is run through the metal plate or run through the water, and it creates mandalas. It creates these cymatic images, which is what you see on the right, and we mostly see them in water. Okay, we see these things in water. So when we talk about the wisdom of these water creatures, and we're looking at one of the most ancient, if not the most ancient story of the creation of civilization, then maybe these water creatures who gave us all of these things, maybe it does have to do with DNA, because there is some connection there. Okay, Eddie is here. Hey, Eddie, thanks for coming in. Okay, so the Apkallu, you can see here one who looks like he's in his fish form and one who looks like he's in the fish robe. Okay, we don't know a lot about these things, because colonization tries to kill off everybody and take all their stuff. So, according to the Babylonian King's List and related texts, Adapa was the first Apkallu. He is a culture hero created by Enki, sometimes identified with the mythical figure of wisdom who refused immortality. Interesting. 6 others Apkallu followed, each teaching art, sciences, agriculture, writing, and law to early humans. You know who the Apkallu thousands of years later got conflated with? the Nephilim, the fallen watchers, who I even heard a story recently where they were saying the Nephilim were descendants of Cain somehow, but I guess the fallen watchers had sex with women who were only Cain's depend. I don't know how they're trying to piece all that together. But for hundreds of thousands of years, we saw these creatures, the giants, the fish people, um, what we would now call the fallen watchers. We viewed them as great things. We viewed knowledge as amazing and awesome. We enjoyed wisdom and knowledge. But for some reason, we kind of live in the upside down now. And Abrahamic religions say that wisdom and knowledge is sinful. Interesting. Thank you, Amlavo. Appreciate you so much. Thank you for that super sticker. You also reminded me, as a side note, I am like 11 subscribers and like 8 watch hours from being fully monetized. So any help you could give me would be great. It would be awesome to be fully monetized. Obviously, I don't do it for the money. I've been doing this for a long time and I don't do it for the money, but man, it's nice to be paid for your time. So any help would be great. M. Lavo says, amazing work, mind expansion. Sometimes we think of things in this depth, yet we may be called crazy for expressing or wanting to explore, right? It's fish people. But it always makes me think, why is our first inclination of, well, that's weird as heck? When they tell us about angels who fly in the air, why can't they swim in the ocean? And anything that makes us have that much of a reaction, why is it so hidden? Why do they not want us to explore? I get a little tinfoil hat when I have that reaction about things. All right. So after the flood, okay, the antediluvian. Okay, after the great flood, okay, whether you want to refer to the biblical deluge or any of the archaeological evidence that we have. Hi, Allah. All right. So after the flood, the original Apkallu returned to the divine realm. So they were here up until the flood. Then after the flood, they returned to the divine realm. Okay. And later times, the human priest hybrids called Umanu continued their legacy. So they had the robes that kind of looked like fish robes, right? And they maintained and interpreted the ritual texts, the omens, the myths. So all of this information got handed down generation to generation. The next priest had the information, et cetera, until everybody gets dispersed, colonization, boom, we don't know this stuff anymore. But they served in temples and royal courts as exorcists, diviners, and scribes. Kind of sounds like the Catholic Church a little bit, right? They're priests, exorcists, diviners, scribes. Anyway, they preserved the Enuma, Anu, and Lil, the astral omens. Okay. They preserved the diagnostic handbook and other Mesopotamian scholarly traditions, right? They conducted the protective rituals. They advised the kings, and it was always based on signs, what was going on in the heavens, the stars, right? Dreams, omens. They interpreted all of this. Leon says, I wonder how these people talked. Oh, when alive, such long distance apart. Isn't it interesting? It is when you get into the linguistics and some of the ancient languages that were completely lost, and then some that have a connection that we never thought of before. So the Apkallu figures appear in protective carvings. So these are things that put up to keep you safe, right? And some bas reliefs in Assyrian palaces, like in Nimrud and Nineveh. So you will see the fish people there. They influenced later religious and mythological concepts. We already talked about the Watchers from the Book of Enoch, right? the concept of antediluvian wisdom, that there was a wisdom that we knew before the flood that we lost and don't have anymore. And then they probably contributed to these Atlantis-like stories of lost knowledge from a pre-flood civilization. Now, what we're finding out is that there was a civilization in the middle of the desert, so pre-desertification of Africa, that was possibly ruled by a king named Atlas. And so these were Atlanteans, and so possibly could be where we got Atlantis. Okay, so the Apkallu wear full body fish suits in Akkadian and Babylonian reliefs. Hi, Snowman. Oh, don't worry about being late. You're here when you're here. And helping the wife cook dinner. Awesome. I love that. Okay, so we have some quotes here. All right, so Samuel Noah Kramer in History Begins at Sumer. Kramer emphasizes Enki's role as the god of wisdom and fresh water, who gives humans the meh. And I know it's funny that it's meh, or you can say may or me, but I say meh, essentially the building blocks of civilization. Now, Enki, part fish. Okay. Thorkild Jacobson in The Treasures of Darkness. Jacobson describes Enki as the bringer of order and wisdom from the watery depths, closely associated with knowledge, civilization, and the maintenance of cosmic balance. Jean Botero in The Religion in Ancient Mesopotamia. Botero notes Enki's unique position as a wise and clever god whose domain was not only water, but the secrets of life and society. I mean, that's a lot that's coming from the waters or the DNA. Okay. So the Dagon, not to be confused with the Dogon, but the Dagon have a connection to the Hebrew mysteries. Okay. Hi, Ado R. Thanks for being here. So Dagon is a Philistine god, but he shares lineage with Enki in Enki's fish form. Okay. Dagon's priesthood wore fish head mitres. Okay, hats, fish head hats, nearly identical to the modern Pope's crown, his mitre, his hat. The book of Judges and Samuel mention Dagon's temples, and some say Samson destroyed one. So these are mentioned in the Bible. So let's talk about the Vatican, because there are some symbols in plain sight and they don't want you asking questions. So we have the Pope's mitre, right? We have in the Bible references to Dagon, right? So the Pope's mitre, which is a tall pointed hat split at the front, as you can see in the picture. This is exactly like the open mouth of a fish and exactly like the Dagon priest's hat. This visual link has been drawn, right, to Dagon, who was worshipped in Mesopotamia and Philistia. Dagon, also called Oannes in Babylonian lore, is described in Berosus writings, who was a Chaldean priest from the 3rd century BCE. Remember when we've talked about Chaldean from the Chaldees, from Chaldees, Mesopotamia? Who's from there? Abraham, of the biblical Abraham. So he was an amphibious being who rose from the sea to teach humanity writing, law, agriculture, and the arts. Oh, yeah, Adrian, you're getting ahead, but thanks for being here. You're jumping ahead, but you were drawing the same exact parallels, right? This being, part fish, part man, is said to have worn a fish-shaped headdress with the head and open mouth of the fish atop his human head and the rest of the fish hanging down his back, very much like a bishop's robe and the mitres that they wear. Interesting. Don't be sorry, Adrian. We're all drawing lines. Leon says, I wonder if the fish people's soldier were wearing arapaima super tough scaled fish as armor. That really could be. That really could be. We preserve hides and make robes out of hides, and we can think about that. But what you just reminded me bringing up arapaima is that guy who used to fish on river monsters, and he would catch the arapaima. Yeah, yeah. It could be that they made the robes out of that, right? Um, and I think I know what fish you're talking about, but then there's also that one, the pike, right? Pikes are ancient, super long, very big. Their skulls are stronger than like steel. So that could be something you could make a hat and robes out of too. Whether you're a warrior or not, it's protective. Okay. So the Roman Catholic Church, inheriting much from pagan Rome and ancient mystery traditions of the Hebrews, symbolically adopted the fish god's imagery. The mitre can be seen as a vestigial symbol of power inherited from the aquatic sages like the Nomo, the Oannes, and Dagon, now used to cloak their ecclesiastical authority. And just like they always do, they colonize it, they steal the information, they keep the information, and then tell you you're nuts for pointing out that the hat looks like a fish. Okay? So, if you control the symbols, you control the mind. The church didn't ever eliminate the fish gods, they became them and then told you that they never, ever existed. Hi, Andrea, 900. Peace to you as well. Oh, yeah, pikes. And there's a subgroup in Britain, people named after that fish. Oh, probably. Oh, Andrea says tilapia skin can heal human skin. I wonder if it helps your skin. Well, I'm sure it does. Eating fish, I'm sure it does help your skin because of fish oil and things like that. Helps your heart. Being pescatarian is pretty healthy. Okay, so let's talk about, there you see the fish, Adrian. So let's talk about some stolen symbols, but also stolen beliefs. Okay, number one, baptism in the water, right? Cleansing with water, cleansing for purity with water is older than Christianity. It was present in initiation rites of the Nile and the Euphrates civilizations, where water was symbolic of primordial life. It was your rebirth. This was going on way before Christianity. They took the baptism with water, right? The Eucharist, or what we call communion, this is earlier sacred meal rites, right? This was offered by the gods, like the Nomo, were said to distribute sacramental nourishment, which is these little pieces of food that we gave in the name of the Nomo. All right. The Vesica Piscis, the fishy, right? The overlapping fish symbol. It's also called ichthys, became an early Christian motif. You ever wondered why the fish was a symbol, the logo for Christianity? I will tell you why. It's an early Christian motif, but it originated from sacred geometry and the fertility and creation archetypes of these ancient belief systems. The staff of the high priest, right? So the Pope for sure carries a staff. The bishops have staffs. They're all different staffs. In fact, when the regular everyday priests are doing certain things, they have a staff, right? So the staff of the high priest resembles the symbols of Oannes and the Apkallu, who carried buckets and pine cones. All of those staffs have what on top? Pine cone, right? These are symbols of ritual cleansing and possibly DNA activation, because you think about where Sumer, Mesopotamia, these antediluvian cultures are at, they don't have pine trees, and yet they all had pine cones. So it could be a specific gland or the third eye. So in fact, the 7 sacraments of the Catholic Church line up exactly with the 7 apkallu, which you will see. It's on your screen. You may have to and you are more than welcome to take a screenshot of this so you can make it a little bit bigger. So we have baptism. We talked about that. Eucharist. We talked about that. Confirmation, also called emnigalama, which is sort of like this coming of age where you were imparted divine protection and guidance, right? Reconciliation, the eme beluga, right? Purifying people, reconciliation, spiritual cleansing, anointing of the sick, also called an enlilda. This is medical knowledge, healing traditions. All of these, this middle column, are the apkallu. Marriage and meduga, it connects with social order and structure. The apkallu taught how to maintain society. So even their 7 sacraments line up with the 7 apkallu. Okay, so we can talk about the noon. The noon, not the nun, although they took that word too. Nun is the Egyptian personification of primordial water from which all things arise. A female, and now all their sisters in the Catholic Church are called nuns. Okay? In the Ogdoad system of Hermopolis, 8 creator gods take on amphibian and serpentine forms linked to chaos and potential. And they take on these forms, these amphibian and serpentine forms, to do what? Give wisdom. Because wisdom was a good thing. It was a gift. It was knowledge, right? Not like in the Garden of Eden, where someone takes on this serpentine form to give knowledge, and then, he's terrible forever. Your Borgen, thanks for being here. There's a saying about convincing people that something doesn't exist. Yeah. Spainman says, I always assumed it had something to do with the age of Pisces. Could be, and we're moving into the age of Aquarius. Leon says, I was in the Discord debating a man from London, baptism in water, and you are from London. Stop the cap. Your ancestors knew better not to get cholera. That's true. The water was not clean. The water was not clean. Hi, Eddie. Okay, so they give wisdom and knowledge in the Ogdoad system, right? This is Kemetian, if you can't tell from the pictures, right? Egyptian personifications, right? Nun with Ptah, okay? So Ptah and the techno creation of life, okay? So we're still talking about fish people, right? Because the Nun, right? These gods take on amphibian and serpentine forms to give wisdom and knowledge. This stuff is all over the globe. How did everybody across the globe, hundreds of thousands, if not a million years ago, up until the last few thousand years, couple thousand years, how did everybody know the exact same thing? And now it's all just woo-woo bull caca. But we knew it. Think about humans knowing something for even just 100,000 years. It's a very long time. Very long time. And then, the Catholic Church comes in, puts on the fish hat and says, that's all dumb. So Ta creates through the word, aligning with sonic vibrational technology. His realm is with the word, right? With the word. Who else created with the word? Later. His story came later, right? But Ta creates through the word, aligning with that technology, right? His realm is beneath the earth and the water. So this is like a dimensional origin, okay? Egyptian depiction of neiters rising from the water or arriving by boat mirror the Nomos craft. So Ta sends the neiters by boat, Interesting. The water is the portal. Okay. So let's talk about India, right? Because again, this is everywhere. So in India, they have aquatic avatars, Matsya, Varuna, and the Nagas. Okay. So Matsya is the fish savior. So in Vedic lore, Matsya, the first avatar of Vishnu. Wait, let me back up what an avatar is. Because I think we know from the movie like what an avatar is. In Hindu belief, because it's not a religion, it's a study, but in Hindu belief, there are three gods in the beginning. Okay. Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Okay. Vishnu is like the god of love and creation. Okay. Brahma created everything. He's like the head of the triangle. Okay. Vishnu is about like maintaining things, keeping things alive, caring for things, nurturing love, all of that. Shiva is about destruction and tearing things down to make room for more creation. See, they work in tandem. We don't hate Shiva, right? We don't hate it when the apple falls from the tree and it disintegrates into the ground. That is Shiva. So, what they believe, because they believe in reincarnation, that during specific times, what will happen is one of the gods, Brahma, Shiva, Vishnu, will be incarnated into the earth to bring knowledge, to come through the waters of the womb to bring knowledge. So, they call those an avatar. So Krishna is, if you've heard of Hare Krishnas, is an avatar of Vishnu. The Hindus also believe that Jesus or Yeshua was an incarnation of Vishnu, and they revere him as such. So that is an avatar. Okay. So in the Vedas, right, the Vedic lore, Matsya, the very first avatar of Vishnu, warns of the flood and saves all of the texts. So this isn't, the angel of God who just told Noah, because Noah is the best of everybody and is the only good one, right? Matsya comes, warns a bunch of people, and saves all the sacred texts. He appears as a giant man-fish hybrid because, again, the information and knowledge comes from the waters. But then the story of Noah gets a little changed, right? It's not quite that, but it does echo the Nomo, and it echoes Enki himself, okay? So then we have Varuna and the Nagas. So Varuna, who is the guardian of cosmic waters and moral law, uses a net to judge, casting the net. Okay. So the Nagas are the serpentine aquatic beings. We see every culture's got them that live in Patala, which is the underwater realm, under the water, under the earth. Okay. The Nagas guard sacred knowledge and the jewels, which they view the jewels as the original chakras. Those are your own personal jewels, are your chakras. And then there are the chakras. Okay. And they also keep the cosmic secrets down there. The Nagas sound just like who? The Nomo. All right. So let's keep it going. All right. So we can't talk about this without bringing up mermaids, right? Because they tell us that's insane. Mermaids are dumb. That's a myth, right? But then those same people tell you angels exist, but we've never seen people flying around with wings, right? Or giants, which I'll end up talking about those people, right? They tell us hybrids don't exist, although there's all these stories about them. Okay. So we got to talk about the mermaids a little bit because we have Mami Wata and Yamaya. Okay, so in West African and diasporan traditions, Mamiwata and Yamaya are aquatic deities with fish like lower bodies. They're seductive and powerful. This echoes deities in other places. They are associated with healing, wealth, transformation, and spiritual contracts. These creatures are everywhere. And when I say everywhere, I mean everywhere. Okay. So mermaids or some sort of aquatic hybrid appear in Celtic lore. They're called the Selkies. In Japan, they're called the Ningyo. In Caribbean oral histories, they're there. Even Columbus's logs describe 3 sea women on the way. Okay, they're everywhere. Now, this gives rise to something called the aquatic ape theory, which I laugh just because I'm thinking of like monkeys taking a swim, you know? But the aquatic ape theory is, well, it's also called a hypothesis because it should be a hypothesis, never been true or proven, but it's this idea in anthropology, okay, in a science. This is not metaphysics, woo woo, anything like that. It is an idea in anthropology that proposes that early human ancestors went through a semi aquatic stage in their evolution. This theory was originally intended to explain certain human traits that seem unusual when compared to other primates. You want to know one of them? Cellulite. Because other primates don't have cellulite, but sea creatures do. It's called flubber. Humans have flubber, but other primates don't. And that's one of the biggest ones that they bring out is that why, right? We also lost a vast majority of our hair when other primates don't lose their hair. So there's just things like that that say, well, if we went through the semi-aquatic stage, when supposedly, the first creature that walked out of the primordial waters was a fish with feet, okay. So that maybe there were these hybrids at one point in time because of evolution. So the hypothesis suggests that some aspects of human physiology, us being bipedal, us being hairless, us having flubber or what they call subcutaneous fat, can be better explained if early hominids spent a significant time in or near water. Water world, right? Spainman says, isn't there also something with babies instinctively know how to move in water? Yeah, babies know how to swim. They do. And you can teach young babies how to float and get onto their back. And if you have a pool at your house, you can teach babies these things because being able to do that is instinctual. Interesting, huh? Interesting. Look at all the mermaids there. All of this, again, they did not have the internet, nor even telephones, right? But all of these things are known globally for hundreds of thousands of years, and somehow it's all dumb, stupid stuff. I don't buy it. So we talked about bipedalism, right? That freed our arms for swimming and then walking upright in shallow water. Hairlessness, right? That's more similar to aquatic mammals. Okay. Subcutaneous fat is the insulation in water, right? We have the same subcutaneous fat as seals and dolphins. We have voluntary breath control, meaning we can hold our breath on purpose. Other primates don't do that, right? That is useful for diving, right? We have a descended larynx compared with all other primates, but it is seen in aquatic mammals. It is again related to breath control, right? We have tears, we have sweating, right? Which is saltwater regulation and thermoregulation. We need that in these different temperatures of waters. And then at times, there are people born with some webbing between their fingers and toes, right? Most often we see in infants, all infants, it's a little more webbed, but we all have just a little bit of webbing between our fingers and toes, right? This is a vestigial aquatic trait. We've lost a lot of our webbing according to this hypothesis. Okay, so let's talk about the Vatican and them hoarding everything. How they do. Okay, so uh, Dogon relics, Sumerian tablets, Kemetian sonic blueprints, and Vedic scrolls have all been seized during war, colonization, and exploration. And also, can I just add, looking for weapons of mass destruction, because they went to the museums and stole stuff instead of looking for weapons of mass destruction. They are housed in Vatican vaults, British Museum, the Smithsonian, and private Jesuit collections. So let's talk about it. The Vatican keeps its artifacts, okay, the artifacts, in the Depositi Vaticani and the Sala dei Papiri, right? These storage facilities house over 70,000 known artworks, with approximately 20,000 on display to the public. So 50,000 are hidden. Okay, that's in the deposit. The Vatican archives are extensive, consisting of over 85 kilometers, 53 miles of shelving. This vast collection includes documentation from Vatican embassies worldwide. What does that say? Vatican embassies worldwide, colonization, right? You set up an embassy, you steal all this stuff, and spans 12 centuries worth of documents. Much of the archive is stored underground in a 2-story fireproof reinforced concrete bunker, and you can't get in there. You're not allowed, ever. Okay. So that's the archives, right? So we have the deposit, right? Now we have the archives. Then the Vatican Apostolic Library, or as it's more commonly called, the VAT, is the official library of the Holy See. That is the Pope, by the way, the Holy See. It is located in Vatican City. The library is one of the oldest in the world and contains one of the largest and most profound collection of writings, manuscripts, and texts. This is the Pope's library. In fact, the library possesses 75,000 codices, 1.1 million books, and 8,500 incunabula, which I always just call them pamphlets. They're little books, okay? The library also houses numerous coins, medals, prints, drawings, engravings, and photographs. That's where all the information is, by the way. Now, that's just talking about the Vatican. That is not even how big the British Museum is, the Smithsonian, and all these private Jesuit collections around the world. Oh, Adrian says he swims like a brick. Well, maybe. And then he's from the cheetah people. Yeah, because run fast. Yeah, we're evolved. Yeah, embassy equals the cultural siphon. Yeah, exactly. That's where they drop everything off and then it's shipped out, right? And then you don't get to know anything about it. Spainman said that should be enough to let anyone know that something is off, all that hidden information. And when I say you can't look at it, you can't look at it. Even the public displays, you have to apply to be able to go into the public areas. You think they're going to let you in the concrete bunker? You don't get to know any of that. They'll tell you who God is. They'll tell you who you are. They'll tell you what to believe and what you need to know. And don't worry about the rest. They got it. It's fine. Don't even worry. It's all good. Okay. So that again, that's just, and when I say the Vatican, remember that is the Romans. That's the Romans. The Romans have it all. Okay. In Dogon, Sumerian, and even Indian and Egyptian mythologies, aquatic or amphibious beings are often the bringers of wisdom and technology across the globe, y'all. Okay, so the Dogon have the Nomo, right? They taught astronomy, language, and morality. Sumerian have the Abgal, who brought the Abkalu or the Oannes. They gave laws, math, and sacred knowledge. In Vedic, we have the Matsaya, who is the fish avatar of Vishnu, who saved humanity, right? And saved the text, the knowledge, right? Then in the Egyptian, we have Sobek. Also, we did not talk about Sobek, who is the crocodilian god, lives in the water, right? Um, he's all about strength, fertility. Like he's a little bit different than knowledge, right? Adrian says, you can't look at it, right? By what right? It's stolen information. Do you know a lot of people thought that after the queen died that they would return a lot of that stuff? That's never going to happen. Spainman says they probably got ancient smartphones from other galaxies down there. Probably. They got ET phone home down there. Leon says a few minutes behind, but babies naturally swim and flout and clip on their back. Oh, yeah, flip. Yeah, they flip on their backs for the first 6 months, right? If you don't continue or never put your baby in the water, they'll have to learn the skill. Yeah, they know how to swim, right? They know how to swim much like a dolphin baby knows how to swim and float and get to breaking the surface. Other primates don't do that. Dolphins do. Okay. So technology that was taken or hidden. We have star charts and the knowledge of Sirius B from the Dogon myth before the Western discovery. We have genetic knowledge. When they talk about maybe they messed with our DNA, there is some scripts and knowledge that we don't get to see. The Nomo were said to reconfigure humanity after a moral fall. They have all the sound and resonance tools from Kemet. They've taken them all, right? These are seen in the myths of the Apkallu as well and encoded in modern theories of sonic levitation of the monoliths. When they talk about, well, maybe they use sound levitation to build the Great Pyramids. We'll never know. They stole all the stuff. Well, I mean, unless we just all get together and decide to go get it. So in many traditions, the belief is that the religious elites and the empires co-opted these relics and symbols. Co-opted, right? We see the Pope wearing the fish head, hiding their true source and the true information. It's almost like, ha ha ha, I got your fish head when they wear it, isn't it? It just seems mocking to me, right? Because it's not done out of respect and believing those ancient traditions. It's ha ha ha, we got all your stuff. Now we're going to wear the fish head, right? So these ancient fish beings, right? We hide them and reframe them under a control-based religious structure. Sound like what they did? Because it sounds like what they did to me. So, the Nomo. The Dogon prophecy states that the Nomo will return. So, let's talk about that. The prophecy and the celestial cycle. So, the return of the Nomo is said to coincide with a specific celestial alignment. Like it doesn't tell you which one, it just says there's going to be a specific celestial alignment commonly interpreted as relating to the Sirius star system. Why? Because the Dogon, everything they do is about the Sirius star system. So we would assume this specific celestial alignment would have to do with the Sirius star system, particularly Sirius B, because that is the most important part of the Sirius star system to the Dogon. It is an invisible to us white dwarf star only confirmed by Western astronomers in the 20th century, yet it was known to the Dogon for thousands of years, okay? The Dogon track long cycles of time based on star alignments, especially Sirius A and Sirius B, suggesting a water-based cosmic cycle tied to renewal and return. But according to the prophecy, when the stars align, whatever that is, as they were in the beginning. Now that's interesting to think about. The Nomo will return in a watery descent from the sky, bringing renewal, order, and restoration. Okay, this event is often described in mythological terms as the re-watering of the world, like the world's purification and rebirth. So, why do some people believe that this prophecy is near? Because a lot of people do. Okay, so there are some astronomical cycles involving Sirius now. Okay, the Dogon tied their prophecy to the Sirius star system, particularly the 60-year orbit of Sirius B around Sirius A. So from 2025 to 2030, and always remember 2030 because it's when a lot of prophecies, including Forbes' prophecy about the fall of capitalism, they all line up with 2030. So anytime I hear 2030 in a prophecy, I'm like, oh, damn, it's probably true. But from 2025 to 2030, some researchers say we're entering a new phase of that orbit, which symbolically aligns with the ancient Dogon cycles. Interesting. Okay. Then we have climate and water symbolism. Everything's about water anymore. So, with the Nomo being water beings and their return is associated with renewal and cosmic balance through water. Okay, we know that. But in recent years, water events, we talk about them all the time: rising sea levels, floods, water scarcity, water poisoning, hurricanes. Excuse me. That's all we talk about, right? Maybe there's some impending shift coming where water is concerned. And then we also just in general have this rising interest in ancient wisdom. We have, I mean, you look on YouTube, myself included, just being very drawn towards this ancient wisdom. So this is indigenous, aboriginal knowledge, right? And it's non-Western cosmology, which seems like maybe more truthful and less control-based. So some spiritual and esoteric communities interpret this as humanity reconnecting or awakening, which would be a step towards Nomo's return. Then we have global chaos and prophetic timelines, which I just talked about. All these prophetic timelines seem to be lining up, right? So like many prophecies around the world, the Hopi, the Mayan, those, the Dogon myth includes a return of order after chaos. And it sure seems like we are in chaos. I say this all the time. We're in the upside down. Nothing makes sense. What's up is down. What's down is up. What's truth is false. What's false is truth. Like everything's a lie, right? Modern geopolitical instability, climate change, and technological overreach are sometimes interpreted as markers of this threshold. I don't disagree. Some interpret the rise even in extraterrestrial or UFO sightings that they keep talking about, even the government, right? And even all the talk about DNA mutations are signs that we're heading towards this maybe, right? But listen, to me, they erased the fish people from your memory, from my memory, and from all of our traditions. They stole their garments and they made themselves your priests. They just appointed themselves, right? But water always remembers. That's why it's always renewal and rebirth. In the beginning was the Nomo, and the Nomo was with Amma, and the Nomo was the word. All right. I thank you guys for listening to me today talking about the fish people. I'm going to leave that picture up because I just love it. I think it's beautiful. This coming Wednesday, we're going to continue on with the Book of Knowledge, the Keys of Enoch. And interestingly enough, this key talks about the true Israel. So unfortunately or fortunately, depending on how you feel about it, Maggie's going to go off a little bit this Wednesday. Talking about the true Israel. And then next Wednesday, we're going to take a little break from the Bloodlines series. And we're going to talk about a man named Bill Cooper. So this is a man who wrote a book, Behold the Pale Horse, right? Who reported on a lot of things about the elites. This is in the 80s, okay? 80s, 90s. he had a radio program on public radio, and he reported a lot of the stuff that we just talk about free and clear today, and he was killed for it. So we're going to talk about him, some of the things he saw coming, right? And does it line up with 2030? And just look at what they did to him based on what he said. So we're going to talk about that next Sunday. Yes, the show's almost over. Sorry, Spain Man. Andrea says water has no enemy. That is correct. Water is the grounding source. Water, water is birth, energy, renewal, wisdom, right? And when I say water never forgets, just so that everybody knows, because I didn't have this in the show script, but when researchers took tears and they let the tears dry in a dish, it creates crystals as water dries. You've all seen that. They would collect tears if somebody was like laughing so hard they were crying, or they were so proud they were crying, or they were so angry they were crying, or so sad they're crying, all these things. And they looked at the crystals and all the crystals were different. Isn't that interesting? And the more chaotic the emotion, the more chaotic the crystal. The more authentic the emotion, the happier the emotion, the prettier the crystal. And so your emotions affect your waters. So they'll never, ever forget. Oh, Spainman says required reading among the circle back when I was younger. Oh, Behold the Pale Horse. Awesome. Okay. So I hope to see you guys on Wednesday. Like I said, this is going to be one where JJ Hertog starts talking about what he believes to be the true Israel, and Maggie's going to say something different. And then I hope to also see you next Sunday. Again, as a reminder, I will show you the picture of my dog, but I'm super duper 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 close to being fully monetized on this channel. I need about 11 more subscribers. 11 or 12 more, I think it's 11 more subscribers, and like 8 watch hours. Like I'm right there. So any help would be appreciated. This is the best live tribe on YouTube. And I'm going to show you a picture of my dog. Please like the video if you haven't already. It really helps the algorithm to know what kind of things you like. Share where you think it's appropriate, especially to someone who you think needs to hear it. And don't forget to check out some of the wilder Pivot Point Wednesday shows. And last, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, especially if you want to break down complex concepts that make the esoteric not soteric, helping you on your journey to become your most authentic self. By subscribing, you'll join a community that thrives on curiosity and growth, and you'll never miss out on insights and some wild discussions. Let's uncover the universe together.